Boys, UFC 315, a few days away. Probably the worst pay-per-view we've had this year, but it is what it is. I've already done my rare predictions on who I think is going to win. Now, this is for those people who can find those very lucky once-in-a-lifetime prop bets. If you see any of these prop bets on any given gambling site, I want you guys, listen closely. Put the house on it. Put the mortgage on it. Go into crippling debt. Because trust me, once these hit, if you're lucky to find one, if you're lucky enough to find multiple, parlay this shit because you are going to be a quadrillion, trillion, bajillionaire. All of the nairs, you're going to be this. I don't condone gambling, but with that being said, I'm going to go list 5 of my rare locks. Shit that's 100% going to happen either during, after, or sometime in between UFC 315. I'm going to list them one by one. And yeah, they're a lock, so 100% this shit's going to happen if you like it or not. Let's get into number 1. Islam Makhachev is either going to be extremely happy. I don't know if he's going to show up to Canada. I don't think he's going to be there in the crowd. I don't think there's going to be any of that stuff. I think we're going to see a Twitter post. Maybe we'll even see a video of, someone recording Islam watching the fight. And we're either going to be seeing a Islam Makhachev happy as hell, seeing Belal Muhammad get knocked out. We're going to see him jumping for joy, borderline crying, because this man is going up to face JDM. That's a given. Or, we're either going to see, once again, the very happy, childlike emotions come from Islam Makhachev, or this dude's going to be salty as hell. He'll be congratulating Belal Muhammad. We'll either get a video, we'll get a tweet from Islam. Congrats, my brother Belal, but you're stealing my dreams. We're going to see a tweet, we're going to see a video. In the video, we would see Islam, being very cordial to Belal Muhammad. But you'll see it on his face. You'll see it in the way he's talking. This man will be salty as hell because he wants to move up to 170. He wants to get that double champ status. But, because Belal Muhammad has trained with Islam Makhachev once, maybe twice, and because they believe the same shit, then they can't fight each other. It's stupid. We'll either hear, Islam Makhachev being like, if Belal loses, he'll try to comfort Belal. He'll say, brother, it's okay. It's Allah plan. It's okay. He wanted this for me. He wanted this for you. He wanted you to get knocked out. We'll have some stupid stuff like that. Either a very happy or salty Islam Makhachev. Guarantee lock of the card. The biggest lock I have on this card. And again, put the house on this one. Moving down. BSD by murder. Let's be realistic. Benoit Saint-Denis, he was supposed to fight Joel Alvarez, where I think Alvarez would have done nasty things to BSD. Now we have him versus Kyler Proprolik. He's a random Canadian, fighter they brought into here because they're going to Canada. And 18-8, not the best resume, but he was in the UFC before. And, didn't have that much success. He didn't get a single win in the UFC, got cut from the UFC, and ever since then he only lost once. But again, it's against lackluster competition. They brought him back into the UFC just to get murdered by Benoit Saint-Denis. And yeah, Benoit Saint-Denis by murder is gonna be the pick for here. So if you see that prop anywhere, it has to be BSD by murder, then you can put the house on it. And yeah, a very, very basic one. This one, common sense. It doesn't. I would be, it would be hilarious if this dude randomly comes out of here. He's 35 years old, on the end portion of his career, never was UFC level talent. If he just comes out here and dog walks BSD, I think that would actually be hilarious. But I think BSD's getting this shit done fairly easily. But let's keep moving down. Number 3, Belal Muhammad versus Della Maddalena. Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. And Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva are all going to be stinker fights. And am I saying those are the only 3 fights that are going to be stinkers? No, the card's not going to be that great, but I'm just going off the main card. I don't want to spend all this time going in the early prelims, Brad Katona, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go list every single guy who's going to be a stinker, but just in the main card, those 3 fights are going to be stinkers. I think Benoit Saint-Denis versus Kyle is only going to be fun because we're going to see BSD by murder. Grasso versus Silva is going to be a stinker. It's going to be a boring women's decision. Aldo versus Zahabi. I think I don't want to jinx it, but we might get a prime Jose Aldo in this performance. I feel like this is almost like a tailor-made perfect matchup for Aldo. I think we're going to see a fun matchup here for Aldo. Then Valentina versus Manon. Let's be realistic. Neither of these girls are all that entertaining. Valentina has her moments, but it's women's MMA at the end of the day. Then Belal Muhammad versus Della Maddalena. I am predicting a very, dominant, nut-hugging, and holding against the fence, holding against the ground decision win for Belal Muhammad. Not a popular pick. A lot of people are going for JDM. But, I'm putting it into the universe for Belal Muhammad to get this shit done so we can see Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. Because it was announced during the press conference, I think it was, that Dana said, yeah, if Belal wins, Islam versus Makhachev. If Belal loses, it's going to be Charles versus Ilia. But it is what it is. Let's go into number 14. I was pretty much briefly talking about it right now, but 317, that shit ain't getting, that's not getting announced, this fight card. Usually they try to do some announcements during a pay-per-view for like an upcoming pay-per-view. That shit ain't getting announced. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. It ain't getting announced. I could see them announcing maybe like the entire 318 fight card, I could see them fully announcing the Max Holloway Dustin Poirier fight card, but 317 is not going to get announced. We're going to have Dana at the press conference after the fight being asked about it. Let's just say Belal Muhammad gets it done. They're going to ask him, so, Belal got it done and you said that we're pretty much just waiting for this fight to be over. Does that mean, 317 is a done deal? He's going to be like, yeah, we have some fights that are good to go now, but, we're still building the card. We'll let you guys know when it's ready. Some stupid thing like that. 317 won't be announced until probably 2 weeks out, knowing the UFC track record this year. And, maybe we'll get some fight announcements in between, UFC 316 all the way up to UFC 317, 318. We'll probably get some fight announcements in between there, but for the full 317 announcement, I don't think that's going to be announced. I'm praying that the UFC has been listening to the MMA community about how shit the promotion has been doing as of announcing shit and of just promoting it in general. I'm hoping they give us some sort of movie-like trailer for 317. Is it a big ask? 100%, but it is going to be their flagship big fight card of the year. UFC 317 International Fight Week is usually the big fight card. I'm hoping they listen to the community. I'm hoping they do something cool. Is that shit gonna happen? Probably not, but let's get into the fifth and last thing on this list. I think we're gonna get a shit ton of shots fired at the Canadian crowd by these fighters. I'm just going to quickly look at some of these fights, and you're telling me that there's some fighters on this list that aren't going to throw shots at the Canadian fan base, at the Canadian crowd themselves. I could maybe see Alakam do it, against Brad Katona, maybe even a Kuntalabe. I'm praying my boy Charles Radtke goes out there and says it again, but Charles Radtke's up there. I could see BSD doing some sneaky disses. Even Belal Muhammad, I could see Belal Muhammad winning, going out there and saying that they should join the USA. I could see a lot of slander, a lot of shots fired against the Canadian crowd by some of these fighters. But yeah, with that being said, if there's any rare locks that you guys have for this card, put them down below in the comments. I want to see what you guys think are locks this week. And yeah, thank you guys for watching to the end of the video, and I will see you guys in my next video.